Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday, August 22nd Board of Selectmen's meeting. I'll read the agenda. 7 o'clock, we'll have citizens input. 7:05, public hearing, 99 Restaurant and Pub. Change of beneficial interest for the annual all-alcohol restaurant license for 99 Restaurants of Boston, LLC. DBA 99 Restaurant Pub, 4 Fisher Street, manager Paul Tellier. 7:15, public hearing, Animal Control Officer Sue Thibodeau. Restrainer removal of dog from 46 Baker Street, owned by Susan and Edward Brown. 7:25, Chief Hatfield, Bill Keegan, Safer Grant, discussion action pertaining to the FEMA Safer Grant. 7:45, Charter School expense reimbursement discussion vote to send letter of support and/or file a home rule petition asking for full state reimbursement of charter school expenses. That'd be interesting. 7:55, Bill Keegan, special town meeting warrant, discussion vote, open special town meeting warrant. 8:05, Selectmen's update. 8:15, town manager's update. 8:25, assistant town manager's update, and then we have quite a few action items that will take place. Chris, can you listen to the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll after 7 o'clock. Is there anybody here for citizens input? Seeing none. It's just about 7:05. We'll do the public hearing, 99 Restaurant Pub. Doc, can you,
But they're not here.
it's okay.
Okay.
We're gonna open it. We'll open the public hearing, we'll explain what's going on with the 99 Restaurant.
Okay.
Actually,
Wrong one. Sorry, let me pull up the other one.
no, they can mention it, you can mention it.
The Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, August 22nd, 2017, beginning at 7:05 PM in the Foxborough High School Media Center, 120 South Street, on the change of beneficial interest for the annual all-alcohol restaurant license for the 99 Restaurants of Boston, LLC, DBA 99 Restaurant and Pub, 4 Fisher Street, manager Paul Tellier. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
Okay. This has already been approved by the ABCC, and because they have to address this in all the communities where they hold a alcohol license, it's not a change of manager, it's a change of interest. And actually what they're doing is removing 2 people from the change of interest. So in an effort to streamline the process, it's more of a formality. Like I said, it's already been approved by the ABCC, so our approval is mere formality. Am I correct, Bill?
That's correct.
So it didn't make sense to have their attorneys and them to come up for basically a rubber stamp, I would think, meeting.
Is this due to the sale that went through, or is pending?
Yeah, it's change of
Ownership.
yeah.
Yeah, but they're just removing the beneficial interest
Correct.
from it. They're not adding people onto it.
Okay.
So it's a removal, not an addition. And where they're removing people and not adding, there's really nothing for us to discuss or vote on.
Right.
So that was the thought process behind it. But because it is a public hearing and it's required, we open the public hearing. We can have a discussion relative to that. Close the public hearing, open it up to the public, then close the public hearing and then take a vote.
So with all that, we're not changing the day-to-day manager, it's just, okay.
Just the beneficial interest.
Okay, I'm fine with it.
It's the people who sign the checks.
Do you have any questions?
No, you explained it perfectly.
Jenny? Being it is a public hearing, anybody out in the audience have any questions or concern regarding removing a couple people from the beneficial interest for 99 Restaurants? Seeing none,
Move to close the public hearing.
Second?
motion made, seconded, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to approve the change of beneficial interest for the annual all-alcohol restaurant license for the 99 Restaurants of Boston, LLC, DBA 99 Restaurant and Pub, 4 Fisher Street. Manager Paul Tellier.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That was weird, but easy.
That goes along with the Eclipse Week.
Your eclipse.
Yes. So that put us a little bit ahead of schedule. So we can do some action items. I do want to hold out the JCs until the end. We'll take that at the end of the meeting. So, but we can go ahead and do the other ones.
Okay. Move to approve the reappointment of Town Planner Paige Duncan as the Foxborough's representative to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council with a term to expire on 8/23/2020.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Move to approve the display of ribbons on Town Common for September in honor of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Okay. Move to approve Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill early liquor license extension request of 11 a.m. for New England Patriots Sunday home games of 9/24, 10/1, 10/29, 11/26, 12/24, and 12/31/2017.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Move to approve the Lafayette House's early liquor license extension request of 11 a.m. for New England Patriots Sunday home games of 9/24, 10/1, 10/29, 10/26, 12/24, and 12/31/2017.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, just as a thought here, just, I don't know if you want to speed this up, but you can actually probably do the same for CBS Scene, Davio's, Renaissance Hotel.
We're filling, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, okay. It's up to you. I mean, it's
You know,
all the
we can-
same action.
We can,
so.
we can have
Saga.
a public discussion on the eclipse if you want. Figured, you know,
It's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
just reaching here.
All right, no problem.
Move to approve CBS Scene Restaurant and Bar early liquor license extension request of 11 a.m. for New England Patriots Sunday home games of 9/24, 10/1, 10/29, 11/26, 12/24, and 12/31/2017.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Move to approve Davio's Northern Italian Steakhouse early liquor license extension request for 11 a.m. for New England Patriots Sunday home games of 9/24, 10/1, 10/29, 11/26, 12/24, and 12/31/2017.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Move to approve Renaissance Hotel and Hilton Garden Inn at Patriots Place's early liquor license extension request for 11 a.m. for New England Patriots Sunday home games of 9/24, 10/1, 10/29, 11/26, 12/24, and 12/31/2017.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Move to approve the Orpheum Theater a one-day wine and malt beverage license for a fundraising event featuring RKO Army performing the Rocky Horror Picture Show on Friday, September 1st, 2017.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to approve 9 one-day all liquor licenses for First and Goal for Patriots Tailgate Party for 2017 New England Patriots regular season home games of the following dates: 9/7, 9/17, 9/24,
If I listened twice.
yep, 10/1, 10/22, 10/29, 11/26, 12/24 and 12/31/2017. The last 5 games could be changed per NFL's flex schedule.
Second.
Motion made,
Yeah.
second, under discussion?
That last line applies to everybody, right?
I believe that's true.
So should that be included in the?
Well, this is a little different in that they're requesting a 1-day liquor license for all those. The
Right.
other ones, I guess, would
Are
be null and
early
void if it
open.
was
Early
They're
later.
early liquor
Early
license.
open.
Oh,
Yeah.
Or early openings.
Yeah.
So that,
But it still could be, it could be a later start. In other words, they may not need it because they've got, it could be a 4 o'clock game instead of a 1 o'clock game.
Right.
yeah.
So, just in case, I think, so. I think given the circumstances, I think this is
Yeah,
appropriate.
you're right, Doug.
Yeah.
So, second.
Motion was made, it was seconded, we had a brief discussion, all those in favor?
Right. Move to approve the Saga Steakhouse's early liquor license extension request for 11 a.m. for New England Patriots Sunday home games of 9/24, 10/1, 10/29, 11/26, 12/24, and 12/31/2017.
Second.
Motion made, second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Move to approve 3 one-day wine and malt liquor licenses to Foxborough Realty Associates for the NFL Fan Hospitality / NEB Beer Garden for the following dates: 9/7, 9/24, and 10/1/2017.
Second.
Motion made, second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Doc, why don't we hold it up
Yep.
there? We'll go right into our 7:15 public hearing. Sue? Public hearing, Animal Control Officer Sue Thibodeau, restraint and removal of dog from 46 Baker Street, owned by Susan and Edwin Brown. Doc, you,
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up, sorry. It's not coming up.
Do you want this?
Yeah, please. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 157. The Board of Selectmen will conduct a hearing to determine whether the dog located at 46 Baker Street and owned by Susan and Edwin Brown is dangerous and what action should be taken. The public hearing will be held on Tuesday, August 22nd, 2017, at 7:15 PM at the Foxborough High School, 120 South Street, Foxborough, Mass.
you're up.
I requested the hearing because this is Roscoe's second bite. He is a large Doberman, and the Browns have continued, following the first bite, continued to exercise him off leash on town property, despite a bite history and a history of difficulty controlling him. They were cited. They have not paid their citation. The dog has not been licensed since 2014. At the time of the bite, he did not have a current rabies vaccination.
So the dog is not licensed?
As of 2 days ago, no.
Can you just go over the, for the audience and as a reminder, the importance of licensing animals, particularly dogs?
It serves several functions. It is a way to ensure that the dogs are current on their rabies vaccination. It also allows us to have a census and also to ensure being able to return an animal to an owner should it go missing.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
So what are our options?
So your options are to, you can, if the dog complained of, you can decide whether he's a nuisance or deem him dangerous. If you deem him, you can dismiss a complaint, deem the dog a nuisance, or deem the dog dangerous. You should have a copy of the definitions on page 2. Dangerous dog is defined as a dog that either without justification attacks a person or a domestic animal, causing physical injury or death, behaves in a manner that a reasonable person would believe poses an unjustified imminent threat of physical injury or death to a person or to a domestic or owned animal. I think he meets in that he did bite a person. They do define, they do list reasons that it would, the animal would be excused. He does not meet those criteria.
Wasn't protecting the owner, wasn't protecting, yeah. I know when we were reading the report, there was something about going back to the kennel where the dog was originally in New Hampshire and maybe returning it, or?
The owner, when I first contacted them regarding the bite, she had contacted the breeder to inquire if they would take the dog back. The breeder, she told me the breeder was looking for a home for the dog. Then I believe that didn't, because that was not transpiring, she contacted a rescue, and actually the rescue took the dog, and then she decided that she would like, she got the dog back.
So the dog's currently in her possession in Foxborough?
As far as I know, the dog is still at 46.
We're right here, by the way.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'd like to speak on behalf of my own dog, my own pet.
Yep, go,
Two sides to every story.
yep, we'll give you an opportunity.
In 2014, Sue, was the last time it was licensed?
Correct.
Okay.
So do you deem this dog a nuisance or dangerous?
I believe, based on the fact that he's bitten twice, that he is dangerous. If you deem the dog dangerous, you then, the Chapter 140, Section 157, requires you to pick from a menu of, gives you options to choose from in terms of remediation.
Chapter 140, Section 157?
Yes, and I provided you with a copy. What I am recommending that the dog, when removed, option 3, that when removed from the premises of the owner or the premises of the person keeping the dog shall be securely and humanely muzzled and restrained with a chain or other tethering device.
Why wasn't the dog muzzled after the first time it had bitten someone?
I think you'd have to ask the owner. And do we need, should they be?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna call them up now, because I have some questions for them. You can come up.
But I think they also need to be sworn in.
Right.
I need to be sworn?
Yep. Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And what, your state name for the record, please, sir?
Name is Edwin Brown. First of all, I want to say to you, I feel bad about what happened with the dog. The dog officer knows that. You spent several $1,000s on this dog. It's not just a regular dog. It's had all its shots, it's had everything. It was only 12 days late on his rabies shot. The new Foxborough Hospital was so backed up, we've asked for a date to have it done. The rabies shot was done. The last incident, we know the person that came up behind my wife. The dog was on a leash. She bent down to pick up something. He came up behind her and startled the dog, and he nipped at him. Never broke the skin, he never cut him. He was in a protective mode because my wife had him on a leash, and she was in open field. It happens to be someone that knows the family, and kind of startled her when she went to pick up the dog's poo and put it in the bag. She had a foot on the
leash and the dog didn't take off and go after the person, the dog just nipped at him to stay away. Now, I have 2 grandchildren, 2-year-old, 7-year-old. They also have friends all on the street. He's never gone after any of the neighbors. He's never gone after any kids. My kids hang all over him, pull his ears, yank at him. He's never, ever showed any aggression whatsoever. But being startled, the dog, it happened twice. The dog reacted that way. Now, I understand, I would never, my wife and I would ever want anybody to ever get hurt. We gave the dog to a dog rescue, breaking our heart, not to lose the dog, or you people to put him down, or decide to put him down, because he's not a vicious dog. He doesn't go to maim them, to rip their arm off, or take their leg apart, nothing like that. He's never turned on anybody in the family. If he did once, or even looked at my kids the wrong way, I would get rid of the dog. So we know what it's like to own a dog like that. He had a pincher collar on him with a leash, and we didn't have a muzzle. Not every dog, no matter what it is, could be a pit bull, could be this dog, could be that. I had a Cocker Spaniel for 15 years before this one. That thing would bite you way before and worse than what this Doberman did to you. So I'm not trying to undermine what's said about the dog. We're willing to spend more money on training. We're willing to put a muzzle on him. We're willing to make sure that he doesn't get near other people. We don't have a problem with that. But I think we're being a little bit harsh with the dog officer. For some reason, I don't think she likes me. I don't like her either. And furthermore, she's not very nice to us. We're nice people. We've been here 20 years in this town. You've never heard of my name or anything that's happened in my family, with my kids, or myself, or my dog. And the dog is a nice dog. If I think for 1 minute he'd be one problem with anybody in this town, including anybody up there, I would get rid of the dog. So I understand what it's like, and I hear about all the things about pit bulls and this and that and everything else. I'm very aware of what goes on. But fine, if she wants a muzzle, I'll muzzle. He is on a leash all the time. We walk him on a leash. He doesn't walk on his own. He doesn't walk down the street. He doesn't walk up the street. He doesn't walk around my yard. He is chained while he's in the yard. He's chained when he's in the house. He's secured. So I know the incident, but you have to understand, at that type of dog, you come up on them and you scare them, or you spook them, and they're near their owner, the dog can react that way. But if I thought he acted in a manner that would be vicious to the point where he wanted to hurt somebody and maim them, that'd be bad. That would be the it for me. I would be done with the dog. But the dog's not that type of dog. She's come to visit the dog. It's never barked at her. It's never gone near her. She checks on the dog. The dog's fine. It's not somebody that goes crazy when people come to my door. He doesn't run out to try to go bite somebody in the neighborhood. That's just the type of dog. But that's all I have to say about it. It's not, I know it sounds worse than it really is. And if he maimed any one of these people to a bad point where I thought he was in viciousness, but if someone comes on my property and startles the dog, or somebody comes up behind you, and he said, Susan, to my wife, which was a friend of the family, his name was Mugger, and she turned quick, and that's when the dog, lashed out at the person. So, whatever you people decide. I mean, if you feel that we have to give him up to send him to I think him living on a farm for the rest of his life is kind of harsh for what's happened. It's not real. If he was vicious, taking off out of my house and going around the neighborhood biting people, that's one thing. But that's not what's happening here.
Well, I don't think the recommendation is to remove the dog. I think the recommendation is to, when you're walking a dog, make sure it's muzzled and leashed.
Fine.
And I think
It's no problem. I don't have a problem with that.
I think that would be our recommendation as
Yeah.
well. I would also
Get it licensed.
make sure you follow the.
He's been licensed all along. It's just something that was an oversight on our part, but it's been licensed all along up until that point.
Well,
We're not trying to avoid a $30 fee.
We gotta make sure we follow up with the paperwork,
Yeah, no problem.
so.
Did you say the dog was licensed now, right now?
We just got a bunch of fines and stuff, I don't know, we gotta go down and pay everything. We'll take care of it this week, we'll get it all squared away. Because I had to go to the vet, get all the shots, just to even bring them to New Hampshire, and, you know, had to pay somebody to go take them up there, and, I mean,
Did you get a census form this year?
census,
Not yet.
I don't believe it, I don't know.
Did you get one last year?
I don't remember.
Yes.
Well, you know, on the census form, at the bottom, it says, is there a dog in your household?
Never noticed it.
She doesn't look at it.
I don't look at it.
Well, if you noticed it, I mean, it's so, you know your dog is supposed to be licensed, and if you return that census form, you should have checked off that you have a dog in your residence that has to be licensed.
We're certainly not trying to hide the fact that we have a
No.
dog. How
Well,
do you
you don't-
hide a 110-pound dog?
But the thing is, you know your dog has to be licensed, and you know that the dogs have to be licensed every year.
Yeah, but my cat needs to be registered every year, but I'm forgetting about that too. It happens. I'll pay whatever it is.
Well,
She also gave me a fine for $120 for the dog that had rabies. It was 12 days. I've spent thousands on this dog, thousands of dollars.
And my question to you earlier was, if the dog had bitten someone a couple of years ago,
Yeah,
then how come the dog wasn't muzzled? And that would have prevented the second dog bite.
the person cut through my yard to go to work. It was on my property. It happened. You know what I mean? This isn't a dog going around a neighborhood biting people.
The first.
That's not-
I'm sorry, I thought you said that it was public property both times.
Not the first time.
The first time I heard from the mother of the young woman who was bitten, who said that she was passing by the house when, and was bitten. The young woman could hear somebody calling for the dog, and then she was bitten. The second time, the dog was on town property down by the basketball courts on Payson Road. At the time that I talked to Mrs. Brown after the first bite, she told me that she was unable to walk Roscoe and would drive him down to that area to let him off leash to exercise. When he bit the second time, what I was told by the person bitten are a little different than what Mr. Brown is saying now. That gentleman did say that the dog was off leash. He said that they were acquainted and through their children, and that they had been chatting 5 to 10 minutes when he went to leave, and when he turned to leave, the dog bit him.
No, I turned, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt.
A dog can be fine. Oftentimes when a dog bites, they know familiar and unfamiliar. And if someone is unfamiliar to them, they may equate that with being unsafe. Fight or flight, got a choice. Leave or handle it yourself, and then in those circumstances, sometimes a dog will bite. In addition to the episode on the first bite on March 16th of 2016, on April 7th, Mrs. Brown called me, left a message, frantic, that the dog had been loose for 2 hours and she couldn't catch him. She said, quote, "She can't do it anymore." I was delayed in getting the message. When I did get the message, she had said that she had caught him, and she didn't want me to take the dog. She would get rid of him on Craigslist. So there has been a history of inability to control the dog. I believe you said about the time the dog bit the young woman passing by the front of the house that he wasn't the problem. That the reason somebody left a door open, maybe a grandchild, but that he wasn't wearing a shock collar, so that prevented you from being able to he refused, he wouldn't come when called if he wasn't wearing a shock collar.
Now he has a shock collar on all the time. So if he is called on command, you just buzz the dog, he comes right over
But
there.
my biggest concern was there seemed to be a sense of casualness about the bites. Mrs. Brown didn't recall the first bite until I reminded her, and that she, despite being told not to take the dog, to allow the dog to exercise off leash because he had bitten, that they were still taking the dog and to public property and allowing him to run off lead. She said, I don't let him off leash if there's anyone around. This is an area that's unfenced. Someone, 1 minute you're the only one there, and the next minute somebody else comes along, somebody on a bicycle, whatever, somebody else to use the public property. If you don't have good control of your dog and he has a bite history, he shouldn't be in that situation.
Well, isn't there a leash law anyway in the town of Foxborough?
There's a care and control law.
So anytime you take your dog out of your house to walk, any dog is supposed to be on a leash,
On
correct?
leash or under voice control.
Chief, you
Philman, now that Sue is part of the public safety family, I just want to say I take exception to this gentleman saying that he doesn't like the ACO. I think that's out of order. Secondly, I think when you asked the question, I think it revealed a misstatement. Clearly, the dog is not licensed, and I would ask that you give them a very limited window to provide evidence of the fact that the dog is licensed and has its rabies shots to the ACO. A week
She knows
or
about
less.
having the rabies shot already, because we let her know.
He's been shot, he's had his shots.
Foxborough Animal Hospital has all the records, it's all updated. If it's a matter of paying for a license, not a big deal, I'll do it right now.
Well,
It's an
why-
argument.
my concern is you've known about this hearing and you know the dog is supposed to be licensed. Why haven't you gotten the dog's license yet?
Well, first of all, I wanna know, because I got a bunch of fines here, I just wanna know, if there's gonna be more fines, what I have to pay to take care of it, that's all.
So we're gonna make this very simple and crystal clear.
Can I
Okay.
say,
Yeah.
because I'm the one who's with the dog all the time.
Come on up.
Come on
to the
up, state your
microphone.
name. Does she need to be sworn in?
Yes, she does. Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
State your name for the record, please.
Susan Brown.
Thank you.
The incident that we're talking about with the dog, the last incident, the dog, there was no one there. When I got there, there was no one there. Then the gentleman was on the court. When I take my dog to that field, I make sure there's no one there. If there is, I do not let him loose. I do not take him off the leash. The reason I do that, like she said earlier, is for his exercise. I've had 2 back surgeries in a year. I can't walk him any longer. Okay, and I was never told after the first incident to have him muzzled. We control the dog the very, very best we can. Believe me, we don't want anyone hurt. Like he said, we have 2 grandchildren. I have nieces, I have nephews, I have all kids around this dog. I have adults around the dog. We would never do that. That's why I had the dog taken to New Hampshire, because I felt like I have to do it. I don't want anyone hurt, and we did it. And then I realized this is a good dog. He is a good dog. He's a wonderful dog. He was protecting me. I turned and had 2 feet on the leash to pick up the poop, which is very hard for me to do. I don't know. I couldn't even see. He had a ball in his hand, a basketball. He is a dog, like you said, when he gets startled. I don't know if he started to walk towards me, because I could not see. All I know is that he got upset and he startled and he went in bed. All right, but that dog has been, since this incident, he's been muzzled, if I even take him out. I could probably count the number of times, because I still can't walk him that well. I don't take him to the field anymore. He has his thing on from morning until night, till he goes to bed. And it does control him. He will come to me. And even when I've been to the field alone with him without that on, which isn't very often, I could probably count that time too, he still comes to me. He will come right back to me. And if there's people around the minute I see someone, I call him and he comes. I put his collar, everything back on, and we leave. don't bring him around because I don't want to take a chance. I know he's protective. He's very protective of my grandchildren, the property, anything. I had him muzzled when I take him out. He hasn't been, like I said, he has not been out maybe 5 times since this whole incident with his muzzle on. So, I mean, yes, the licensing, it's my fault. It's not his fault. I take care of the bills. It's me. And I haven't done it. And it's silly. We knew we were coming. There's no excuse for it. There is no excuse. But at the same time, I don't know. I understood also that maybe he was gonna be recommended to be put down. I can't have the dog put down.
I don't think that's gonna be our recommendation.
That was originally what I understood.
So that's why we're having this hearing tonight. So, any more questions from the board?
I did, question for Sue. On number 4 of the things that we have to choose from, if the dog is deemed dangerous, it says that the owner or keeper of the dog provide proof of insurance in an amount not less than $100,000, insuring the owner or keeper against any claim, loss, damage, injury, blah, blah, blah. Is that something that we usually require, or is that something that you feel that in this circumstance, maybe should be required?
We have not required it. I'm not sure how readily someone can,
Usually that can be covered under the service person's homeowner's coverage.
Do you have that coverage on your homeowners
No,
insurance?
they don't, they won't do certain breeds of dogs, the insurance companies, which they rule a lot of dogs out in that section. So I'm responsible for my dog, and that's it.
The other challenge they would probably have now is that since the dog is bitten twice, they may not be covered under the coverage.
Your personal feelings regarding our dog officer are irrelevant. She's doing her job. You might not appreciate the way.
Sensitivity to everything, though.
It doesn't matter. She's protecting the public, and that's her job, and we thank her for that. So we always appreciate people doing their job. A lot of times it's thankless. They're not going to please everybody, but she is doing her job. So I just want to get that on the record. Doc, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Now, as far as the options, I think we have to give them a definitive timeline to pay all the back fines and to get the dog license, number one. I think there should be a stipulation that the dog should be leashed and muzzled at all times in public, unless it's in a fenced area.
Dave, don't we have to decide whether the dog is a nuisance or a dangerous dog?
Well, yeah, we have to decide. I think we.
Before, because
yeah.
nuisance is just,
Yeah, I think the dog is dangerous, due to the fact that there's an issue with Mrs. Brown controlling the dog, when she's by herself. So I think in that aspect, the dog could be deemed dangerous, with the history of the 2 bites. I don't think anybody on this board would want to recommend, euthanizing an animal, particularly a dog. But I think we have a responsibility for public safety, and this will be the last chance. So I think we have to be very direct and put a defined timeline on getting this done. Failure to meet those guidelines in that timeline, we will have to take the dog away.
So, Mr. Chairman, so the actions before the board is, there's a couple steps. One is, the first step is to determine if the board determines that the dog is dangerous based upon the hearing and testimony that's been presented to you tonight, what would be the board's decision on that issue? And second issue would be that the form of penalty that would be issued and any other conditions that the board would like to place on that, on the situation.
Can I have a motion on whether the dog is deemed dangerous?
You know, how would you word that? Move to deem the Brown's dog dangerous.
I would say, based on the testimony and information presented to the board this evening, I would move that the board determine that the dog Roscoe, as referred to in this hearing, has been determined to be dangerous.
Get that, Caitlin? So moved.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
So now we need a motion on conditions. So I think we need to do a defined timeline on getting the back plates.
I think we should clarify what needs to be paid first, right? So what's in arrears?
Licensing would, licensing at $12 per year, 2015, 16, and 17. It would be, they had been issued a citation of $50 for failure to license. Any late fees, that would be determined by the, the town clerk's office, but for tonight, we'll say that it's just the fine. I think they would waive the late fee in lieu of the fine. And then there's a citation, $100, failure to vaccinate and failure. Let me see if I have a copy of it.
So it's the fine, citation, and licensing fees.
Oh, I do have a copy, I'm sorry. It was biting a person, $25, failure to vaccinate, $100, and failure to license, $50, so a total of $125.
Plus the 3 back years.
Correct.
I'll just pay it tomorrow, don't worry about it. You don't have to put any time on it, I'll just.
But
Oh, we have to
I
put
think
a
we
time
should.
on it. We have to put a time limit on it, for the record.
I'll just-
So,
So 161. So move that all licensing fees of $12 per year for 3 years, the citation of $50, failure to license, citation for $100.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot there was an outstanding citation for the previous year. It went to court, a warrant was issued when Mrs. Brown didn't appear for the arraignment, failed to come to the magistrate hearing, it went to arraignment, she did not appear. That's also outstanding. So there's, from 2016, there's a $50 citation that has remained unpaid.
But does that go to the town of Foxborough, or does that go to court?
I honestly don't know the answer to that.
I think it would still go to the
It'd
town.
still go to us.
Yeah.
It's just
Can
that
we just make it pay any outstanding fines and fees, where we're not sure?
So,
of
so the
what's
action
out
would be
there?
that any outstanding license fees, any outstanding warrants or citations relating to this particular case must be paid within 10 days, I would say 10 days, recommend to you 10 days. And that failure to do so would require immediate hearing before the board again at the next board meeting for further action.
Yeah.
Yeah, so move.
Second.
You need to say it again.
That's not all.
No, then we have a third
Yeah.
There's a third piece, sir.
piece.
Motion made, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And then, so wording it would be moved to make sure that the dog Roscoe at 46 Baker Street went outside the house. of the
The-
home.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, if you can clarify
The
it.
wording, if you go to the Mass General Law 140, Section 157, it gives you the wording.
Do you have that?
Item 3, yeah.
Oh, I've got,
This- Is that it?
When removed from the premises of the owner or the premises.
Yeah.
Oh, good, perfect. So move that when removed from the premises of the owner or the premises of the person keeping the dog shall be securely and humanely muzzled and restrained with a chain or other tethering device having a minimum tensile strength of 300 pounds and not to exceed 3 feet in length.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, can we also include on that you said that the bylaw in town of Foxborough said that a dog must be on a leash or under voice commands. Can we stipulate that the dog can never not be on the leash when it's out? Never,
Well,
We just did
Which-
that
that's
with
really what
number
that
3.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what number 3
That's what
states,
number-
just to be
yeah.
clear.
but I mean, just to make, but,
Securely and humanely muzzled and restrained with a chain.
yeah,
Other
okay,
than tape.
but I mean, and you
We
realize
understand
you
that. No, we
can,
understand. We have no problem with
No.
that. He'll be always,
on the
chain.
leash, okay.
and always muzzled.
Yeah.
Understood.
Mr. Chairman, just one clarifying point. It sounds to me, based on the testimony offered by Mrs. Brown, that she's not able to control the dog all the time. I'm wondering if it's appropriate for her not to be the one that controls the dog in the public?
Well, I think with the dog muzzled,
Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, you can't tell her she can't walk her dog. I mean,
Well, except for the fact that she indicated that she has, debilitating conditions that allow her to not
Well,
actually do all.
conditions are gonna get better. She had an operation.
Fair enough.
yeah, as long as the dog's muzzled,
And
I
I
think,
wouldn't walk him without his muzzle.
yeah,
yeah.
I think that,
And his, I put the muzzle and his,
Electronic collar.
yes.
okay. Motion made,
Yep.
Seconded.
second. Any further discussion?
Hmm.
All those in favor?
Fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, sir.
Could we maybe get a note from Sue that everything was taken care of by our next meeting?
Yep.
Sue?
Sue?
Sue, I'm sorry.
Just a report, just to provide a report to me when those fines have been paid and secured, so that we don't have any, so we know exactly when. I'll just let the board know. Okay? Great, thank you.
Thanks, Sue.
Is that Roscoe with an O or an E?
Oh,
Excellent.
Right to the last minute.
Rules, went a little bit behind. Chief Hatfield? Safer grant?
yeah, he's gonna stay with her just for the time being. She's out.
Come on, my little ducklings.
All the white shirts.
All right, so,
We don't have a fire dog, do we?
no,
No,
but they have a Sparky suit, though.
we do. We have a really nice one that blinks its eyes.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, just by way of introduction, this is the item that I introduced to you 2 weeks ago, relative to the fact that the town has been the fortunate recipient of a fire safer grant through FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, applied for by the town through Chief Hatfield's operation. Particularly, and I'll leave him to do the introductions on that piece of it. But tonight, we are in a position where we wanted to afford the board an opportunity to ask any questions they might have prior to tonight's meeting. If there's any issues that you want to just have an opportunity to kind of evaluate and study before this meeting tonight. Just want to make it clear that we do need a decision out of the board tonight because the grant is on a 30-day notice, that if we determine not, or we don't make a decision, or we decide not to accept it, that it would in fact be a challenge to, we may not be able to keep the grant based on that determination. So that's the reason for their presence tonight, and to make sure that everybody's clear on the action before them. All right, so without further ado, Mr. Chairman, I'll defer to Chief Hatfield.
Thank you, Mr. Keegan. I hope all of you guys got a copy about 2 weeks ago. There's some bullets on the reasons why we actually went after the grant. The key point is before you even look at the grant, you got to look at the rational reason why do we need more firefighters. And what we wanted to do is give you actual facts, not opinion, based off of different reports that were done by a third party, being the Cough report in 2006, 2007, along with things that have occurred since I've been your fire chief since 2009. I did a survey, looked at a lot of concerns that folks had, both from the firefighters' point of view, from the town manager at the time, Andrew Gala, the Board of Selectmen, and analyzing the question, what should our staffing level be at? Even back in 2009, 2010, it was pretty clear that we were reaching a point that we needed to be looking at 8 firefighters just to make sure that we could support the ALS services that we have here in the town of Foxborough, along with still providing a good, solid fire protection. 2012, I also did a study looking at all the surrounding fire departments when we were looking at why was our overtime at the level that we were at in 2012. And again, one of the key components that came out of that is looking at our staffing level. How can we reduce overtime is by looking at how do we reduce the amount of callback that we had going on. So a lot of these things were building up the case of showing where we should be at. And that was going all the way back to the Coffer report in that 2006, 2007. And if you look at the facts of where the town of Foxborough is today, with the growth that we have at Patriot Place, with the growth that we have with 2 very large housing complexes, being the Lodge and being the Domain, looking at what's going on at Foxfield Plaza and just the residential growth. And the call volume has also increased drastically since the time that that study was done. It's pretty obvious, very clear that for us to be able to provide a heavier service on the EMS side to make sure that we have the resources available to protect our community and our residents, to still be able to protect our community from fire, it takes people. So when my 2 deputies came in, we strategized on a kind of like a master plan, looking at short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. And this discussion came back up, as it's been one for 9 years plus. And the deputies had talked about it. Deputy Kelleher asked what my thoughts were on the SAFER grant. I thought it was a very good idea. I have seen other communities that have received it. And it does help communities out that are looking to better protect their community. So we asked permission to look into it deeper. I said, yes, I absolutely, go right ahead. With some assistance with Lieutenant Bettini and other staff members, they got all the data, the facts, to support the SAFER grant and wrote an incredible narrative that caught their eye. We also got support from Congressman Joe Kennedy's office in regards to the SAFER grant. And before you know it, we were getting phone calls asking us our account numbers and if we were at a point that we could accept pretty close to a $750,000 federal grant to help the town of Foxborough out in regards to meeting their needs to provide protection. That's kind of the short and narrow. I brought both the deputies here as they've been here for longer time than I have, and they have deeper understandings of the growth of the community, and we can answer any question that you might have.
Members of the board, fire away. No pun intended.
We're ready.
So this would be hiring how many potential firefighters? 4. And that would fill the coffers that you're looking for, if I could, to get that. What was your number, 8?
Yeah, right now we're at
firefighters
7.
per-
We're at 7 per shift. That's a captain, lieutenant, and 5 firefighters, paramedics. This would bring us to 8, adding a firefighter paramedic onto each shift. And you know, I'm not even going to get into talking about the future, but just today, that allows us to still keep the 2 ambulances going out and keeping the fire apparatus staffed. A lot of times we're probably now about 65 to 68% medical on the statistics.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, it's 2 ambulances going out at the same time. When we do that, that drops 8 guys automatically out the door, leaving us with basically 3 to run fire protection and to still respond to other EMS calls and bring mutual aid in to help us out. By having 8, it would allow us to continue to provide a better protection to our whole community.
One of our challenges is 30% of our ambulance calls require a second paramedic in the back of the ambulance. So our fire engine only has 2 guys that respond along with the ambulance to help and assist to getting the person out of the house and whatnot. But when they actually transport, that engine now has 1 guy on it coming back to the station. It's really out of service and can't respond to other calls. So that's 30% of the approximately, 1,800 to 2,000 ambulance ones we do a year. So it would help fill that gap so that truck would be available to go on other calls and whatnot.
You had also mentioned, Chief, that this would help reduce overtime, so what
Well,
money are we looking at now in overtime?
When I did the study in 2012, for those that were around, I think, Ginny, you were, that's when we had discussed going to 7 at all times, and we did see a drastic reduction in callback need because we had those assets. Do I see 8 helping us reduce any more than that? Probably not, because we're not having, the callbacks that we have now are for like full box alarms, any high hazard area like Doolittle Home, where it's a nursing home, high school, schools and things like that.
So what we actually did was we did some risk assessment and risk analysis and looked at what our call volume was, and really we just, we used to recall guys from home when we get busy. Well, after a while, it becomes inefficient. You're calling guys in from home constantly. They're coming in. They're not prepared to go out on calls. They're in jeans and a t-shirt. They're mowing their lawn or whatever they're doing, and you're paying them a minimum amount of hours to come in on a call. And a lot of times, you weren't getting them to go out on anything. It was just coverage. It was reactionary. It wasn't, wasn't proactive. So what we did is we reallocated those overtime funds to beefing up the staffing on the shift day to day to cover those calls, and we reduced the amount of time we're calling guys back in, it's a better scenario for everybody. It gives us a quicker response time. The guys are appropriately dressed, they're ready to go, so when they, and in the station. So, but there's an element of risk involved, like with everything. So when we call guys back, we could get 20 guys back and have a lot of manpower. We might not get anybody. So we decided to reallocate that money and really try to keep the guys on the shift, 1 or 2 extra guys on the shift, as opposed to constantly recalling people from home.
So with that being said, like on a regular shift then, do you have more than 7?
We
No.
never have more than 7,
Okay.
and we're probably able to maintain 7 people with the current overtime about 70% of the time, and about 30% of the time we're at 6.
Okay.
So we have certain types of leave we fill, and there's other things that we don't. When someone calls in sick,
Right.
we drop to 6.
Okay.
So then that puts us in the, so when I painted the scenario before, we run the 2 ambulances about 50 or 60% of the time. The second ambulance goes out before their first ambulance goes back. So a minimum of 2 people in each vehicle. So that's 4 out the door, going to Norwood, Sturdy, sometimes Boston, but then enter in the 30% of the time when we need to take a 3rd guy in the ambulance. That's at least 1 guy in a fire engine going back to the station. That creates a scenario we need to call guys in from home,
Right.
things like that, so.
So in a situation like that, and this maybe is getting off, what if you had another fire and you've got
There you
all
go.
those people out?
There you go.
We call mutual aid,
Yeah.
and
Right.
then we call everybody in from home.
Right, and we run ourselves at risk because, again, even with that scenario that you just said, we're still gonna be the first ones there, 1 guy, 2 guys.
Yeah.
And that's just a really unsafe condition for any firefighter that has to deal with, if they're dealing with a structure fire or any type of fire scenario.
But even from a practicality standpoint, so we get the fire alarm at the Renaissance, and they dump the Renaissance and they evacuate. People are standing out in the parking lot in the middle of February because somebody set off a smoke detector on the 3rd floor. I mean, we still have an obligation to
Right.
respond, and if everyone's out, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just as troublesome to the business as like a major fire, but it's still, that's the issues we deal with sometimes,
Now, with one other question, back in, what was it, 2008, 9, when did you do the conference?
2006,
So
2007.
the ideal staffing then was 8. Is that still the state statute or national statute, or for a town our
It's
size?
the recommended staffing amount for that report, based on the population activity that goes on here in this community.
At
But
that
we-
time.
At that time.
So what is it now? What is the?
We haven't done a
Yeah,
study
we haven't.
Been a recent
since
study,
then.
Which is something that we've talked about.
We just knew from that time period that, that report came out and said that we needed the 8.
Yeah.
We got 4 at that time. And
Right.
since that time, we've been
Right.
trying to get those extra 4.
And I did a personal study just by contacting all the Norfolk County fire chiefs in 2012, looking at communities that were at 21 square miles like we are, in the area around 17,000. And at that point, it was 7 to 9 is what we were seeing out there in just Norfolk County. So all the statistical facts outside of what we think has shown that we should be at 8 and growing. And again, that's not even taking into consideration what we think the future is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years. But that's where a study could potentially help.
Okay.
Ginny, you had something?
Oh, I just had a question that always comes up.
Mm.
Why do you send a fire truck
I-
with an ambulance?
So-
And then
so
people always ask
Yeah,
me,
no, it
and
gets asked all the
Yeah.
time.
And I want them, I've
So-
answered it for a lot of
Yeah.
years, so I'll let
Yeah.
them answer
So
it.
20 years ago, we used to get our paramedics came from Norwood Hospital. So 2 guys would come from Norwood, our 2 would go from the station. There were 4 people going to that call. This is back in the 80s, probably 30 years ago now. So when the town wanted to hire its own paramedics, you know, it would actually be a lower level of service if we only sent 2 paramedics to the house, given the amount of equipment. The obesity problem in America today, where people are up on the 2nd floor, we have to carry them down and treat them. It's a combination of things like that. We do a lot of car accidents just because geographically we're located in a kind of a transportation area of 95, 495, 140, Route 1, 106. We do more car accidents than a town with, like, say, Norfolk, who doesn't have the highway, or a town like Rentham, who just has to cover 495. So fire truck is a standard response to a car accident, because cars leak oil, fuel, gasoline, that carry the jaws of life as well. So if we need to pop a door to get somebody out of a car, or you know, it's worse, we need the hands. The fire engine really is just kind of a manpower.
well, that makes sense when you go into a car accident.
Well,
Right.
so the state now mandates the medics. Before, when I started, we grabbed that person, threw him in the back of the ambulance and went. They're mandated now to treat at the bedside or treat at the instant. So if somebody's in bed, the paramedics have to treat there before they even get in the ambulance.
And that's when we
So
went to an ALS system.
now you need people bringing in the AEDs and all the other equipment, and bringing more equipment in to assist those 2 medics as they're treating at the bedside.
But why a fire engine, why don't you get
Because a
like
fire
an
engine can go to,
SUV?
a fire engine can go to any call that comes up. So we do a lot of
Yep.
responding from one emergency to another, and the fire engine is the only truck that we have that can go to, if your house is on fire. It's also licensed by the state as an ambulance. It has all the same equipment to provide advanced level life support as we have in the ambulance. It's got a cardiac monitor, it has all the drugs. It has, you know, obviously water. It has meters for carbon monoxide calls, which we do a significant amount of in the wintertime, when people's carbon monoxide detectors are going off. So it's a utility vehicle that can respond to any emergency that comes up that we would respond to. That's the only truck that we have. If we were in an SUV, we were on North Grove Street, and we got a call for a fire on East Belcher Road, that would be, we'd have to go back to the station to pick up the fire engine and then respond.
And also, going back to, as Michael did an analysis of maybe a year or 2 ago, and we have started with the dispatchers and triaging the calls. So somebody calls up and soap in the eye, I had that once, a 911 call for soap in the eye, we won't send the engine to that,
Right.
just the
So,
ambulance.
yeah, it's not
goes.
actually every call.
So
We
it's
actually try to triage them.
over the last year,
Yeah.
year and a half, 2 years
Yeah.
now.
There's certain calls that we send more than just the fire engine, the ambulance. We'll send 2 ambulances to a call. For instance, a cardiac arrest. It's manpower intensive. You know, there's a lot happening in the first 10 or 15 minutes. Overdoses, things like that.
Yeah.
Those are calls manpower intensive. We'll send more than just the engine.
But again, a lot more recently is now you will just see the ambulance responding, just them.
Okay, so simplified. If it's a basic life support through the new tier system, just the ambulance. If it's an ALS, an advanced life support, that's when you're always going to see the 2 paramedics dealing with the patient. That's their job by state statute. The fire truck is the evacuating. They're getting them out of their homes, getting them out of their place of business, getting them out of their vehicle. They extricate. And that's how the system works to provide the highest level of medical care we can.
Thank you. I hope everyone heard that.
I probably get asked that question monthly, so
I think we're about as efficient as we can be as a fire department.
With the staffing that we
Today,
have.
With the staffing that I think we're pretty good at capturing most of our calls, and our mutual aid isn't, it's balanced for the most part. There's times that they'd say the highway is the only place where we kind of abuse mutual aid.
Yeah, I think it's great. Whoever wrote a grant, I know how hard it is writing grants, it's phenomenal. What happens in 3 years?
Well, with this grant, we're not obligated to go any further than the three years with the grant. If we financially feel that we can't afford it, or we as a community feel that there's not a need, we're not obligated at all to keep those positions. So at that point, we have a few choices. We could look at what we have for retirements coming up, and not backfill those retirements if that was the situation that we felt was best suited, so that we're not really laying anybody off, or we lay those individuals off. I personally believe that when you read Randy Scollins' letter and you look at the projections like I have, and you see the growth that we have projected for the next 3 to 5 years, I feel that this is keeping us where we need to be, and when we get even further into our future, be what it is, we're going to be fine.
Well, it's funny, I thought Randy was gonna be here.
Randy is actually on vacation this week. He's actually out of the country, so good for him. But I wanted to, I asked him to produce a report, which he did, and I think it's important to read it into the record, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. I would, because I think he makes some very good points and will help support the efforts that have been made here so far. So this is a letter from Director of Finance, Town Accountant Randy Scollins. I would prefer to speak in support in person at your 8/22/2017 meeting, where you will be reviewing the fire department's request to accept the federal SAFER grant. However, I will be on vacation out of the country and unavailable. Therefore, I have prepared the following recommendation. First off, I would like to congratulate the entire department, but in particular Deputy Chief Kelleher, and Lieutenant Patini, who's here, by the way. I see him in the back there. And Deputy Chief Buckley as well, on their success in being awarded the grant in a very competitive process. The grant allows for the hiring of 4 firefighter paramedics, increasing each of the 4 shifts strengths from 7 to 8. It is my opinion that before considering accepting the grant of this nature, i.e. a substantial 3-year financial commitment then no financial support, the first question that needs to be answered in the affirmative is if there is a real and compelling need to increase the shift. Future cost is the secondary consideration, yet still an important one. 8 per shift has been a supported goal of the fire department for quite some time. Specifically, the COF reports prepared by an independent consultant in 2007 to assist the town in understanding the long-term impacts of the Patriot Place development recommended that the town increase shift strength from 6 to 8 at the time based on their detailed analysis. The town was able to increase to 7 on a sustained basis, but unable to increase to 8 at the time due to the crash of the world economy and the resulting impact on state and local revenues. Over the past 10 years, Foxborough public safety departments have become increasingly stretched from border to border, Route 1 to Routes 95 and 495, and out to Summer Street. Commercial and residential development is expanding at a record pace in Foxborough. In particular, the southeast quadrant is in hyper-growth mode right now, with the main Hanover 248-unit condo complex and the redevelopment of Foxfield Plaza / Forbes Crossing nearing completion. With the commuter rail pilot now officially approved, significant development on the west side of Route 1 is highly likely in the foreseeable future. Adding to the Foxborough is a destination dynamic is an aging population, a growing population, and serious medical issues, unfortunately, increasing. In my opinion, it is the community's best interest for our fire department to be properly staffed to manage the increasing calls for service. If the Patriot Place development impact was enough reason to support 8-person fire department shifts 10 years ago, certainly all the development that has occurred since then only solidifies that argument. The need is clear. The grant amount of $740,639 is substantial and would cover an estimated 82% of all the compensation and benefit costs over the 3 years excluding pension and OPEB. However, we are funding pension and OPEB costs according to actuarially determined funding schedules. The OPEB funding level is unlikely to be impacted by this particular staffing addition due to how well the town has been managing this benefit and the funding of it. The Norfolk County Pension Assessment is on a fast track to be fully funded within 10 years after the SAFER grant runs its course. The assessment is projected to start declining as a percentage of salary before the grant ends. Therefore, these two costs are a minimal consideration of the long-term funding requirements for these positions. I'm estimating that the grant funding level will cover 100% of the compensation, health, life, and Medicare costs for each of these first 2 years. In the third year, the town would need to add $160,000 to cover these costs. In the fourth year, after the grant expires, the town's commitment would be $310,000, or an increment of $150,000. I don't consider the third year cost to the town to be a significant risk, assuming our financial plan is achieved over these next 3 years. As an indicator, as we close FY 2017, I am estimating that we will finish ahead of plan slightly by an amount that would cover the $160,000 third year incremental cost. Assuming our recurring revenue growth continues at this positive trend, the third year of the grant is a minimal financial risk that we would be able to mitigate if necessary. Beyond the third year, the financial risk is that our recurring revenues aren't sufficient to absorb the incremental $310,000. It is quite possible the town's revenues will support this additional cost. However, if they don't, there are options. The first one being that the 4 incremental staff members are not required to be retained after 3 years. Not optimal, but certainly this eliminates the financial risk. Another option would be to find other savings in the budget to support the 4 staff members. This could be achieved by reprioritizing what is most important to the town at that point in time. In summary, the need is clear to the town to increase the fire department staffing level by 4. The cost of the town over the 3-year commitment is very manageable at $160,000. The financial risk to the town after 3 years is in town's complete control, and therefore not a significant risk. Therefore, I would strongly recommend support to accept the SAFER grant. So, what you've heard tonight is the practical reasons for staffing the positions. You've heard the financial position, which really defines what our commitment is in terms of the town for supporting those positions over the 3 years, and then beyond that time frame, and indicated to you that it's something that we should be able to manage. I think the one remaining piece that needs to be addressed is the issue of the study itself is 10 years old. I would dare say, based on and this is really in support of what Randy said, is that I would dare say that the number of 8 is probably minimal and not maximal at this point in time. So I would say to you that it behooves us as a town to actually explore the possibility of doing another study and to see where we stand at this point in time. And then at that point, we can actually determine whether or not at the end of that 3 years, whether that's the appropriate staffing level at that point, or we still have work to do to determine if that needs to be determined. Those are my thoughts.
Okay. I absolutely agree with the third-party consultant to come in and evaluate what the future development is doing to the department and how we can shore up our public safety. I don't think it's wise to walk away from a grant of this magnitude. I would say that the consultant should be hired sooner versus later. Let's get a read on this in the next 12 months, and maybe put a small committee together to review the findings, along with the fire department. Maybe the board can do that jointly, and just so we can put together sort of a master plan for growth of the fire department, and then we can include, if it comes back like we all think it'll come back, that we need the extra support, that we can include that in our financial projections going forward, so there are no surprises when it comes to the budget season. And maybe we can start building some reserves in advance to help fund that.
Help offset that.
So those are my thoughts. I think a lot of work went into this. I think it's a good opportunity. But we have an obligation to the taxpayers to make sure that this is needed. You know, take the burden off of the fire department to prove to everybody that it's needed. Let's have a consultant come in and based on NFPA and requirements and state statute says, this is how we recommend Foxborough Fire Department to keep the public safe.
Now, there is good news in that the department has organized itself in such a way now that their command structure is really well-defined at this point. It's really clear as to where the lines of authority have been drawn. The department itself is running very smoothly at this point in time. Obviously, having that, 3.5 years ago, that same conversation was being had at the table with the fire chief and members of the department. We could use that extra one person. We could, obviously, we weren't at that position to actually fund that. But we actually, I did support some additional staffing incrementally to bring it up and to get the organization structure in place. So this is really the next logical step. Fortunately, the federal government's gonna help us with some of that, and I think it's a good opportunity for us to take advantage of that.
When would the funds be received once the
January.
deadline is the 28th?
January 21st.
Not that he has been counting.
Along
Yeah.
with the hiring?
Yeah, we could do.
You could
January.
start that
We
process.
could start that process in the early winter and probably be ready to go for the January 21st.
Any more questions from the board?
No.
Can we have a motion?
Move to approve the FEMA Safer Grant.
With, I think it's important that we put something in the record to
Request
make
funding.
sure that we request to hire a consultant to look at the long-term needs.
Should we split it up, though? Two different motions?
Yeah, I would do that, and then in the recommendation, I would suggest to you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that you approve the grant straight out as one action, and then secondarily, direct me to seek funding either next fiscal year or before, if possible, to engage the services of a consultant to conduct a staffing study of the department.
Okay, so we'll move to approve the FEMA Safer Grant.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Okay. And then do we need a motion, or do we just direct you through the chair?
I think the message is clear.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thanks for the hard work on
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you
Oh,
so
wait a
much.
minute, Barra's got his hand up.
Just a quick question, like clarification. Barry Dino, Foxborough reporter. So once you get the money on January 21st, you would start the hiring process before that, and then be able to hire once you got the money.
Exactly.
So basically, you'd be going through stuff earlier in the winter, and then once you got the money, you're hired because we have the money to do it.
Absolutely.
And I was looking
If you
at the,
shave off your beard, we might consider you.
well, I don't have the training, unfortunately, but otherwise that would be a very tempting salary. Other thing is that so I looked over, and that it's currently everybody who's on roster also a certified EMT as well as a firefighter.
Minimum EMT, but most of our firefighters are not paramedics.
Excellent.
Right, and
Minimum
exactly,
EMT,
everybody that's
most
been
are
hired
paramedics.
since I've been here is all paramedics. We haven't hired any EMTs.
Excellent, very good. All right,
So-
that's all.
So, Mr. Chairman, it's, as I see Chief Baker sitting here as well, it's probably behooves us that if we're gonna seek funding for an evaluation, we should do it of both departments, to look at both staffing levels, because I think they're both closely matched now, at this point. It probably.
And they were both mentioned in that
They were both mentioned in
report.
that report. It's probably a good idea to update both sides of that equation.
You guys did such a great job finding a grant. Are there any grants out there for these studies?
We'll look,
around.
we'll look around.
Maybe the NAPC.
Yeah, there might be some.
Okay.
But I think it's an important study to have in our
Absolutely.
possession.
I think that's one big note that the community needs to know, is that we have a lot of members of our department that have taken this on their own. They're not being paid, they're not being compensated. I want to point out Lieutenant Patini, even before Deputy Callagher was a deputy, always got engaged in that. And that's one great thing about this town, is you have people that are always looking for that alternative funding source, and it makes my job a lot easier. So,
Yeah, great job.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks again.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Congratulations.
All right, we are running behind, and I want to take things out of order because there's a lot of members of the JCs here. So I want to take that action item now if nobody has any objections. I don't want to make them wait until whenever.
10 o'clock.
So,
Just for the record, that when I was chairman 2 weeks ago, we were out of here pretty easy, so.
Not that we're pushing her, no pressure.
well, you know, when it comes to animals, everybody gets bogged down, so.
Yeah.
So, on the action item, we have approval of Togetherness Gathering, Not in Our Town event on August 24th on the Town Common from 6 to 8 p.m. You'll have to forgive me, I've been traveling, and I'm not fully up to speed on how this came about, so Linda, can you just, if you don't mind, give us a little bit of
Linda
background?
Walsh, A Pond Ave, Foxborough JCs right now. I have. So there was a couple situations that happened over the past couple months. Racial slurs were thrown out at people in the street. So it was on Facebook. I responded to it saying, make sure that you let the police know about it. But then further down, a couple days into it, the JCs were actually called to action. Maybe the JCs could put some kind of little get-together on the common, like we've done in the past. So when the JCs are called out, we usually take action. And so we did. Almost immediately, we put things together and sent a package to you folks. So we have since changed the name from, we had it at Not in Our Town to Stand United Against Hate. So there's no negatives kind of in that. We've been watching the folks that have signed up to come, and there's 55 that are coming, and then there's another 103 that are interested. So we've been watching the feed, and there hasn't been any negativity. I did meet with Bill and the chief. They were a little concerned. It was before there was the protest and rally in Boston. Just kind of see what happens in there. I didn't see what I thought I was going to see. I think it went fairly well. There's been another event in Attleboro that there was no incidences there. I know that Walpole just did one with the kids, and everybody painted rocks with nice slogans and thoughts on them. So for us, basically, it's going to be the big thing for most people will be almost like a musical chairs, where the music stops, I sit down and I speak to Chris for 2 minutes about, hi, I live on this side of town and you live on that. Oh, I like the Patriots too. And the music starts again, and then I speak to Ginny about sports or whatever. So that kind of thing, it just gets everybody to kind of in conversation with one another. And then on the children's side, we have little buckets, and they'll have pom-poms, and they might give a pom-pom to Chris and to David and to Ginny, and then Bill will give me one, and so they kind of fill their buckets with these things. And also a nice little story that will be told to them about, words matter kind of thing. And I have little pledge cards that, before they start school, they understand that words hurt. And we have a DJ trying to have a group photo with the letters I am Foxboro, and just 2 hours of a lot like National Night Out, only there'll be things for everybody, so.
One of my concerns when I first heard this, is this an overreaction to an ignorant comment? I just want to make sure, do we feel that this is something that is starting to rear its ugly head in our town, or is it just a timing issue? Is it something that was kind of brewing and we just kind of putting this together?
I'm not sure. I think that the one incident happened, and the woman came right out on Facebook and said something. And then another woman came forward and said, yes, what happened to my son on the common not 2 months ago. So before it gets to be the third person, I would say, let's, come together and try the best we can to let everyone know that Foxborough doesn't tolerate that. And, Bill had a great suggestion that, you folks maybe do a proclamation of some sort and make a statement at one of your meetings that, it's what we do.
Well, I'll make a statement right now. It's not gonna be tolerated, period.
Right.
There's just no room for it, and I don't think this town is like that, because you have two members on the Board of Selectmen and leadership with Jewish background.
Mhm.
So this town is accepting, okay? This town is tolerant. I just wanna make sure that we're not overreacting to social media and a Facebook post, okay? Because you know what happens. People say something, they write it, and it's off, okay? I don't wanna get into the situation where every time someone makes a comment, JCs have to gather and we have to have a big hug off on the comment. That's not what
That's fine.
that's not what we do, okay? And you know better than anybody.
What's not what you do?
We do as a community. What we do as a community, and you set the blueprint. You and Jim and Bob Correa and Bill Dudley, when there's an issue, we set policy and you educate, okay?
Right, and I really think that's what the J.C.'s are
Okay.
trying to do.
Yep.
In
No,
their own way.
I
Is
agree.
to do a pledge card.
Yep.
I don't think it's wrong for any of the community to get together on that common every Tuesday night if they wanted to. I really don't, I really don't. And I don't think that we overdo things as J.C.'s, and it certainly isn't for any, kudos or anything. We see a need and we deal with it. Whether you folks know about it because we have to have it on the common, or we have to have it in another location, or for an individual that nobody needs to know about. So those are the things that we do.
No, I just wanna make sure you guys do a great job, okay? You do what you do, okay? But for the community, with social media, they have a tendency to overreact, okay? And I wanna make sure that we're not overreacting. We're taking things for what they truly are, and people are educating themselves and finding out the real information.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
It's just, we wanna do things
I
for
think we're
the
just
right.
being proactive.
Okay.
You could say that.
Yep.
I certainly have been here for the 55 years, and I can say that we are not that town. We've never been that town. So I want people to feel that we are welcoming, and I think this is a
I
way to
agree,
do it.
and I think we do. a
This
pretty
is
good
one
job.
of the ways to do it.
Okay.
From what you told us, what you guys are doing, I want to vote that we make this all the time, every year. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. I appreciate everything the J.C.'s do. I can remember a few years ago when we had the military guys that got shot down. Boom, you guys are up there having a peace rally. It was great. You guys are always doing stuff. But this, to me, what you explained that night is going to be, we should be doing that. Just along like National Night Out. It should be on the calendar every year.
Back in the day, we didn't have Facebook, so in 2001, the J.C.'s were actually called, like, on the phone. Like, you have to do something, you have to have some kind of a get-together on the common, and so we did. So, this has nothing to do with national incidences. It's more of a local thing for Foxborough.
So, Mr. Chairman, I want to be clear about the point I think you were trying to make about this, and this is not directed as a negative towards the J.C.'s at all. I mean, the J.C.'s are trying to do what was perceived to be a good thing here. So I think everybody's clear about that's what the goal is. I think the concern is the fact that we've had some significant things had nationally. And I think we're very sensitive to that at this point in time.
Right.
And as I read your letter indicating that what you sent along with your application, it's a little different from what you just described. Your original letter talks about something more than just some of the events that you talked about, having speeches and things of that nature. Is that still part of your plan?
So we were gonna have speeches,
Okay.
by the victims, but, we will be having a speaker, with words of encouragement only, that, to let folks know that words matter.
Okay.
But the victims themselves, will probably not be speaking.
So,
I think, don't get me wrong, I think it's great, but I just, in society today, there's an overreaction. And, when we were growing up, it was, sticks and stones will break my bones, names will never hurt me. And I had to do I'm probably digressing here, but in 7th grade, I had to do a book report on Eleanor Roosevelt. And there's a phrase that she's very famous for, and it says, nobody can make you feel inferior unless you let them. And I've lived by those, I remember those anytime I get into a situation. I mean, even being on the Selectmen, people don't always agree with you, and they say things, you know.
Can't imagine, right?
But you know what? You gotta have self-esteem. You gotta believe in yourself. And I don't know. I applaud you for what you're doing and what you're undertaking and the JCs and.
It's the JCs. It's not Linda Walsh.
Well, I understand, but you're the one sitting at the table. You're the one that's representing them. So.
We weren't all gonna fit.
So, Chief, any public safety concerns with this? Or-
No, obviously we'll take good care of them.
Okay.
We did meet with Linda, which we were grateful for that opportunity. My concern really, as the former chairman of the Governor's Hate Crime Commission and a former civil rights lawyer and somebody that cares very passionately about these issues, was that we not see the victims re-victimized in case people with bad intentions and offensive speech did happen to appear. But Linda's spoken to that. So whatever happens, we'll take care of. And with that background that I bring to the table, I certainly admire the motivation behind this. I share your concern about social media. Probably one of the dinosaurs in the room that unfortunately deal with the downside of social media every single day. And I would personally not like to see social media driving public policy in our town. And I said one other comment to Linda, which I'll share publicly, and that is that I think these things are largely symbolic, not to say that they're not helpful and not necessary, but I think it's important for people to get involved in these issues substantively. So I would love to see the people that are rallying around this cause volunteer for the NAACP or the Anti-Defamation League, make a donation to the Southern Poverty Law Institute, do something substantive as well as symbolic on these issues, because the symbolic response to these things is not going to change public policy. It's not going to protect these victims. Everything combined is good, but I think the substantive approach to these issues are the things that are really going to have a long-lasting, sustainable effect on people like the two people that were victimized in this particular case.
So I second the chief's position on this, and I think that this is an important first step, but it shouldn't be just the first step. The one thing that Foxborough does tremendously well, and you said it earlier, that we already have a blueprint. We're following that blueprint now with the opioid issue. We're actually trying to expand that now into the regional efforts that are being done on this as well, on that issue. And I think that we should continue to follow those kind of blueprints, because a one night on the comm is not going to change anything. It's going to show that I think everything that I believe that the community already is, and most people do that I know of. But I think it's important that we do something if we want to be truly impact makers in this issue, that we do take some steps beyond that.
And if you need anything more from us, please let us know. Okay. So.
Right. Yep. Move to approve the.
Can I just say one thing? I'm sorry. I was waiting to see if you're going to ask if anybody else had anything to say. And of course I did. I just want to say
You killed our moment.
I'm sorry. I know. I can probably in it cursing me right now. Debbie Stewart, Foxborough, Mass., 44 in Ponset Heights Ave. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to Linda and for doing this. Chris, I absolutely agree with you 100%. 100%. This is something that should be done every year on some level, because I have to disagree with you, David. I love you, but I have to disagree with you. There are factions in this town that are that way. Not the town as a whole, but there's a faction. And when you have a cancer, it spreads. Can't help it. New generations coming in, older generations going out. You don't know who's coming into the town. We need to keep this dialogue going. I appreciate the fact that you said you didn't want the victims to be re-victimized. And I guess I didn't look at it that way. I was hoping that if one of the moms had spoken, that she would be able to speak to how it made her children feel. But I understand now, I look at it from your perspective, and I appreciate that, and I thank you a lot, because you've made me learn something new. But I think it's important that we follow through with this, just like we do with the McGinty, just like we do with the night out for drugs. So I think it's a big step that you're making tonight. And hopefully, before I ever have to leave, we will be that town. We won't have to worry about this anymore. And the schools will get more involved in stopping this within their own four walls, because it goes on there. Verbally, bullying, physically, it's there. So let's make a change. And I applaud the JCs, and I applaud the town for taking this opportunity to make us better.
So
Okay.
before you leave,
Yeah,
I have to respond because you don't agree with me.
we don't disagree that often.
No.
See, this is what we were worried about, right, Chief?
Here we go, Linda.
This is what you warned me about, Chief.
I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover.
You say there's factions in this town,
Yeah.
which there's factions in all towns, okay? People say ignorant things, and they have deep-rooted beliefs,
Yeah.
okay? A night out is not gonna change that,
I
okay?
agree.
What's gonna change that is education, and that's why I was saying we need to educate, okay? And you're right, it needs to happen in our schools, and the schools are doing some of that. They have policies in place regarding bullying. My oldest son was a target of bullying, okay? He's a junior at the Citadel now. Obviously, he got over that,
That's right.
okay? He was able to advocate for himself and work through it. But it was identified as an issue. They put a bullying task force together within the schools, and they've come up with policy, and they're able to control that as best they can. Can you eliminate it 100%? No, okay? Can you make it a small percentage of the population and decrease the frequencies to minimal and make it an exception and not the rule? Absolutely. And that's what our goal should be with this. Okay?
I agree.
And that's, what?
I do agree.
Okay.
So you do agree?
That's all he wanted to hear. That's all I wanted.
That's all he wanted to hear.
We don't have to- we don't have to discuss it anymore. We
Can we
agree.
go?
We're good.
Can we just take the vote now and
Quickly,
Doc.
move to approve the Foxborough JC's Togetherness Gathering Stand United Against Hate event on August 24th on the Common from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just thank you, JCs, for everything you guys do for the town.
Ditto. All those in favor?
Right?
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Good luck.
See you Thursday. Thank you.
I'll send an email now.
All right.
How late are you gonna get up tonight?
As late as you need.
Bill, you wanna go over the charter school?
Yes, so the charter school, situation, I actually had, let me go down to that, because I know that there was something there. So there are a couple things here. First of all, we got a letter from Representative Barrows reaching out on this issue, where we reached out to him this past week, and then I believe he spoke with you directly, Ginny, on this point, but he said he wants to say thank you for reaching out. This letter was addressed to you today. Thank you for reaching out to our office required about the policy that could be created from H 3747 and act relative to the reimbursement of charter school tuitions for the city of Lowell. This legislation will be a good starting point of conversation as it relates to the bigger debate on public school funding. The interest on this subject from the Board of Selectmen of Foxborough is important and surely will be something that will be valuable as a funding formula for school budgets will be a topic for discussion in our state. At this time, the bill relating to Lowell has been assigned to a committee but has not been given a date for a hearing. With the bill having been filed this summer, that it will be some time before a hearing is set on this legislation. Our office will be happy to keep track of it for the Board of Selectmen and update you on the status of legislation as it continues through the legislative process. It's signed by F.J. Barrows, State Representative, 1st Bristol District. Other information on this, the district costs for this, we had Randy take a look at this, and this is an important issue for Foxborough, obviously, because we are ranked 40th in the state with respect to the number of FTEs. We have 148 students, and the net district cost to us is $1,801,353. That, by the way, puts us in terms of total cost for the school. The Foxborough Charter School is ranked 4th in the state in terms of overall funding. So obviously, we are a very important player in this discussion.
Those FTEs, those are, the 148 are all 100% going to the charter schools?
Those are charter school
not
students.
Other schools or anything like that?
That's our charter school complement. And it's currently at 1.8. It could be actually a little bit higher than that because I think that's last year's number and not this current fiscal year. So I'm happy to defer to Ginny on the discussion you had with Jay directly on this, but if you have anything you want to add, I mean,
No, he just explained where the bill was.
Yeah.
And, because he couldn't be here tonight.
Yeah, okay.
And then I suggested he just send you the information that you could read,
Right,
which you did.
right.
But I think it's important to support the town of Lowell. And also, I think it's important for us to file our own bill, our own home rule petition.
I think that's a good thought. So you can actually take that up as part of the special.
Right, it'd have to be a warrant article.
It would have to be a warrant article for special town
And if
meeting.
you read the bill, it's just like, it's like a one line. Like,
Yeah, it's pretty
state
simple.
pays 100%, or whatever it
Yeah.
is. And the thing is that the more towns that do this, I mean, maybe they could bundle the bills together and then just do one, but the more voices that the State House hears, the better. And the more support we can give somebody else,
Right.
they'll support us.
I agree.
That's the way it goes.
And the MMA has actually come out in support of more funding for charter schools as well. As of recently, Jeff Beckwith wrote a very positive article about that, about addressing that issue.
So we're basically looking for the state to reimburse 100%.
Right. Yeah, we actually, it's really a two-pronged issue as I see it, and as Randy and I talked about this quite a lot of times at length. It's really a two-pronged issue. One is the funding is not being supported by the state in terms of the budget requirements each year. It's only, and when seeing the full funding of the requirement. The second thing is that we think that the formula itself is flawed in how we get the appropriation for this.
So back up, the funding of the requirement, what are you talking about?
Well, whatever we spend, we should get reimbursed locally, so we don't lose our funding, because our funding goes directly to the charter school, and it's less money that we have to spend on our own system.
So
that's
if our Foxborough per pupil expense is 12 grand, we have to give 12 grand to the charter
That's
school.
correct.
And then the state reimburses us, is supposed to reimburse us 12 grand technically?
Yeah, you would think.
But if I think we're talking two different things. We're talking state reimbursing us 100%, and then we're talking about a child's education.
Right.
So,
Well, the other thing is the formula itself, and the question then becomes, the real question about this is why is why are cities and towns funding really a for-profit operation? That's the fundamental issue, and why are we doing that?
This is the only state in the country that actually reimburses anything, so
Yeah.
I think we're kind of, I agree with Ginny. I mean, if we could get 100%, that would be great, but I think if every town piled on, the state might just say, well, you know what, we're the only one in the country that does this, we're not gonna do it anymore.
Yeah, but not all towns have charter schools.
That's right, that's the issue.
No, but
Yeah.
but like in other parts of the country, there's no reimbursement whatsoever from the,
But it begs the question,
state.
why are cities and towns funding a for-profit operation? You know, it's
Why is public money
Yeah,
being
you diverted
diverted to
for-profit operation? It's no different, it's like, it begs the question, like on private Catholic schools, for instance, people pay full freight for those. You know, people want to go to charter school, that's their choice, but why should cities and towns be, responsible for that cost?
Why should we be subsidizing when there's
When
no
we have a good
upside
system.
on
yeah.
the revenue
Well, I think
side?
it's, charter schools, from what I understand, is classified as public education, isn't it?
Quasi,
Quite.
quasi, yeah.
But the city of Lowell is asking for a letter of support, right? So there's actually two issues here.
Right.
A letter of support for the city of Lowell, and also possibly doing our own legislation.
Right.
You know.
So
we should-
the question before
We
you
should
tonight is.
absolutely be supporting Lowell.
Lowell,
Right,
yeah.
so I think that's the question here, is that, the first question is, will you support Lowell? And that's, so a motion would be appropriate for that. And then second motion would be to, put an article on the special town meeting warrant for funding for the town of Foxborough.
Yeah, home rule petition.
Move to support, send a letter of support to Lowell.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
And move to have Mr. Keegan look into getting it on
Put a draft of warrant article.
draft a warrant article.
And that will be for,
Our own
looking for
home rule.
100% state reimbursement.
Right, and we have to, town meeting has to approve that to tell Jay Barrows.
In order to send it to the
and
state.
Send it to
Right.
file the legislation.
Okay. Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Good segue into special town meeting.
There you go. So, we're recommending to you that the date for the special town meeting be held on December 4th, 2017. That we could open the warrant now, effectively, and then close it on October 3rd, was the recommendation. So that's what we're proposing at this time. Gives us about a month.
Say October 3rd, close it?
October 3rd would be, your meeting on October 3rd, we would close it, move to close it.
These are typical,
Yeah, it's about 30 days.
limited.
About 30 days.
Do you have a list growing?
We do.
We do.
And one more.
Yes, we just added to it.
Yeah. We currently have 2 definite and a bunch of proposed, so this one will be the third definite.
Is that one that we discussed, is that on your list?
It's the marijuana, that we should make sure it's on there.
Please, get that one on.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
We have some collective bargaining issues we
Yeah.
hope to
We
resolve.
currently have funding for the common fence, for casting of replacement fence.
Yeah.
And,
But it asks for extra funding.
yeah, we have a street acceptance. We're going to have some collective bargaining items. And then there's that chapter, the thing we talked about at Fox Cares, the acceptance of the 10 a.m. serving, 33B.
What is it with this town and fences? Because St. Mary's Cemetery, somebody took out the fence at the entrance to St. Mary's Cemetery.
When you start serving at 10 a.m.
So what happens at night?
And they took out the
signal,
charter school sign.
Oh, yeah,
remember
yeah,
that?
exactly.
And then over the weekend,
Yeah.
we had the
Somebody
Yes.
knocked over, hit one of the pedestrian
pedestrian
signs.
crossing.
Yeah,
Oh,
by
signal.
Abishans,
Mm-hmm,
a building formerly known as Abishans.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we need to vote to open a special town meeting warrant.
Yes.
move to open a special town meeting warrant.
Second?
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
You would, well, and then you'll, with an anticipation of closing date of October 3rd.
Does that have to be part of the motion?
No, not necessarily, no. So you just, but just to let the public know.
Okay.
When we put the list together, and you put the bullet points and you put the chart together, will you just make a note, that it needs to be closed by October 3rd? I know we always ask, when does that have to be closed by?
Right.
Yeah,
So if you just put that on there.
right on the chart
We'll
itself,
notify
yeah.
you of that, yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Okay. Selectmen's update. Obviously, I've been traveling the last few weeks, so I've been kind of out of the loop. But where we're coming upon budget season, it's rapidly approaching. There's a couple of things. We got to have a follow-up on the financial summit.
Yeah. So we're looking at a date in September. We set the date already, I think, September 20,
Let me check.
it was the end of September. It was the second meeting in September.
Okay.
Oh, actually, it's an in-between meeting. It's in between it's in between, right before your
I think it's
your October 3rd meeting.
The 26th.
Right.
September 26th at 7 PM.
Yeah, I think it's important that we follow up on
Yeah,
that
I
and
agree.
follow through.
Yeah.
The other thing is, can we take a look at our consultants, who we use on a regular basis? I know school department uses consultants, the water department uses consultants, town hall uses consultants. And take a look at their contracts. I know we did very well when we went out to bid with town council and some other consultants. I think it's good to look at who we
agree.
used in the past. I know in my business, we do 3-year contracts. We have no self-renewing contracts.
Yep.
Every contract, even though it's a 3-year contract, it's up for renewal every year. And it just keeps these vendors honest and hungry. They don't get complacent. And I just wanna make sure that if we do have any of those, that we rein them in. And if we have consultants on one side and there's a consultant in another area within the town, maybe we can consolidate and create some savings and efficiencies.
There are opportunities for that, and we've looked at that internally to see if we can somehow consolidate, in certain, in legal counsel issues in dealing with. We have our own town council, schools have their own town council, but there may be an opportunity with labor council, because the labor council has not been looked at in a long time. So it may be an opportunity for us to take a look at that. So, we're familiar with their firm.
Yeah, I think it's good
Yeah.
to go through the exercise.
Yeah.
Let's look at the contracts.
Sure.
Especially if we have any self-renewing contracts, those should be eradicated,
Yeah,
like immediately.
yeah.
So we should, it's a good opportunity to rein some of these consultants in.
Just so you know, labor or town councils typically are letters of engagement. They usually, and I don't know if there's, have you actually set a term in Foxborough in the past, Jenny? It's been,
The labor council.
No, I don't.
or town council.
Well, how do we handle, like Dave DeLuca?
Dave DeLuca is special counsel. He's your liquor counsel.
Well, I know who he is,
But
I mean,
he's-
how do,
But he's like that's a letter of engagement from him.
that's all it is?
That's all it is.
Is it a term sheet, is it?
Yeah, he
Attorney
basically
at will.
gives us, he sends us their terms, and this is what, we will bill out at, and, occasionally, if they send us a notice saying, we're gonna change the number, then we bring it back and let you take a look at that.
We have that
But-
with HR council as well. We do an
Yeah.
engagement for a year or so.
We've had, and so far, it's worked out pretty well on most fronts. We haven't done we haven't done any changes on our labor side in a long time, though. And
I
that
think
might be
it's,
some-
it-
might be a
I
good
think
time
it's
to take a
worth
look at
taking
that.
a look at. I mean, I don't know how.
Yeah, and,
the board
the
does, but-
comment you made, like, we have the town has their lawyers, the school has their lawyers, is there any way to
Consolidate.
consolidate?
Yeah,
And
it would actually make it, I deal with the schools legal
lot.
counsel on, workers' comp, unemployment issues, and then we're using a different firm on the town side
There
to
must be a
streamline
cost savings
things.
to just have one for the whole, everything.
Right,
Yeah, we're happy to explore that option.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Yeah, no, it
definitely. It's
makes a
always
lot
good
of
to look
sense.
at it again.
I think maybe you look at it and you're like, you know what, we're doing pretty good, but you never know. I mean, I
Right.
think it's worth taking a look at as we get prepared to go into budget season.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
that's all I had. I know, Doc, you had
Well,
something for.
yeah, I'd like to just remind the town that Sunday at the Ahern Middle School, Coach Jack Martinelli, the 35-year head coach of Foxborough High School, the Ahern athletic field is going to be named after Jack Martinelli, and there's a dedication at 11 o'clock, and then a little barbecue afterwards. And everyone's invited to attend.
I just want to thank Troop 7 and the Recreation Department for the eclipse viewing. I didn't go to it, but I heard it was extremely well intended.
Yeah, we had, I think we had more than we expected.
Yeah, I heard a
There
number
was
like over 400 people.
400
Yeah.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
A group
so-
of us from Town Hall went, it was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. So it was good to see my alma mater, Troop 7, engaging the community and trying to make some money.
I've never seen anything take off like that did in just a matter of a few days. It was
Yeah.
like, yikes.
Yeah.
And you couldn't buy, and then they were saying how you could buy 30 of those glasses for like $20. Now you couldn't buy one for $20.
Yeah, yeah,
So it was like the way it was a marketing genius. Somebody was a marketing genius in that whole process.
yeah.
So,
Well, I'd just like to say I went to town hall today and I met the concierge. Lovely
Yes,
lady.
yeah, yeah.
Very nice,
Some
yeah.
nice ladies,
Very,
nice
very
folks.
nice. It was very nice to have someone there.
Greet you at the door,
It
yeah.
was very nice.
It's been great.
So-
Has the community taken?
People love it, and
Taking
the
on-
seniors love it.
Oh, I
And it's
know.
just, it's
Yeah.
great. And they, it's been really, really helpful. And and so just so the public is fully aware, these are senior work-off candidates who've all pretty much, they show up for 4 hour time blocks, and they do a terrific job. I mean, they answer people's questions before they even get to us, a lot of times, and if they don't know the answer, they're happy to direct you in the right place.
Good.
So it really helps people, especially people unfamiliar with the building now, that they're trying to learn it. But even so, it's just a good idea to have them there, because people just stop and talk and walk
Yeah.
away with a smile, which is a good thing.
Does she have a phone there? Is there a
No,
We do
phone?
No.
not at this point. That's
gonna
not the
put one-
permanent location either. It's
Oh,
gonna be on the
Yeah.
other side of the lobby, once
Right.
we get an electronic bulletin
And there is a
board.
phone jack there,
Oh,
so
yeah.
we will be able to.
I want to thank Bera for featuring our concierge greeters in the
Yeah, that
newspaper.
was a great article.
Yeah. It's a great group of people.
Yeah,
We-
really nice, they're really nice folks.
Good, I think it's a great amenity for the community,
Mhm.
especially with something new and a friendly face to greet them.
Yeah, it softens the building.
Yeah.
as
It
you-
really does, yeah.
Tremendously.
Good.
So, all set? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, we think the building's gonna come down this week, the old building. We think that's the plan. I say we think because all indications are it's a go for this week. All
Troop
the-
7's already selling tickets for it.
There you go.
Very
So-
enterprising.
They'd be selling bricks too.
Goggles.
Yeah, goggles, I mean, they obviously, yeah. So now, that'll be the next thing, we'll be selling stuff for that. But it looks like, all the disconnects have been made, all the utilities have been disconnected. There was a little bit of, I think, of a traffic issue with that this past week on South Street, because they were disconnecting some of the water issues, the water connections to the building. And that caused a little bit of concern yesterday, plus the traffic even from attending the eclipse thing the eclipse viewing was problematic, so. But we got through that, and so that's well underway. So folks keep asking, when's it gonna be, when we're gonna be ready to do a formal ribbon cutting. Our preferred option would be to wait until the building is complete, the old building is down, parking lot's complete, and we're pretty much set. It looks like, based upon the timetable right now, we're about 6 to 8 weeks out from doing that, having everything finished. So you're looking probably like the 1st of November, unfortunately, because just the way the timing is working out on this. But everything should be pretty much finished at that point, so then we can do a formal ribbon cutting and have the formal tours and stuff like that of the building. But a lot of people have seen it and they're walking through it now, and people are very, very excited about the building and the way it came out. Some very big news this week, obviously, is that we got approval for the rail pilot program. We went to Boston on Monday. We met with the Financial Management Control Board, and were approved by a vote of 4-1. So that is the beginning of the process, but the train itself will not begin until April of 2019. So we got a lot of work to do in between there. There's a lot of marketing work to make sure that people are on board about it, make sure. So, but there's a lot of pieces that we still have to work together to finalize. But I will tell you that was a major, significant step for us in the right direction of dealing with that issue. So, so everybody's clear on what's going to happen is that's an 11 and a half month pilot program. It will be evaluated after the 19 months, after the 11 and a half months, to determine if full service is warranted, and then hopefully we'll be on the next phase of that to full-time service. So a lot of pieces still to be done, but I'm pretty confident we'll work through them, and I think we'll get through it. It's again, that step on Monday was a significant step forward in addressing that issue. So I'm very pleased to be able to report that.
And I think Paige did a terrific job.
She did a phenomenal job. I want to say, and so that was my next comment, is to thank Paige, Duncan, all for the work that she did. All the business community, the chamber, of course the craft group, who worked really, really hard on this issue. They funded, the studies and necessary information that was needed. It was interesting to know that of all the pilot programs that were put forth, this was clearly the most well-defined, well put together pilot of all those that were presented. And obviously we had a lot at stake here, and so we want to make sure it was done right. But it was really well researched, really well put together. And the questions that the board asked were all appropriate questions, and hopefully we'll get to the next phase without any problems. So I want to say thanks to Paige and everyone else who really worked hard on this effort to get it done. And Jay Barrows and all the legislative people, and Secretary Ash and Secretary Pollock, who stood up in favor of it as well. We're going to start the busy season again. Busy season is upon us pretty quickly. So September, once it rolls around, is a busy time for us here. We've got the Country Fest concert this weekend with full shows on Friday and Saturday night at Gillette. Then we have football. The opening football season is going to start on September 7th. So we got a lot going on in town over the next few weeks. On top of that, the school season will be upon us. The new school season will be upon us starting right after Labor Day. I take that back. Is it before Labor Day or after?
After.
It's after Labor Day.
Yeah.
Okay, right after. I wasn't 100% sure of that. So, we're doing everything to prepare the roads, get everything ready, finalized, and getting ready for another great school season for everyone. That's all I have.
To the point of school, I got to see up close this year the amount of work that it takes Jim McGowan at the school department to, onboard all the new teachers. And we had a wellness event today at Town Hall to talk about, to engage employees about the new health insurance options and that we recently negotiated. And Jim was there, and he just does a ton of work getting all of those new employees up and running in a very short amount of time. So just want to give him some kudos on that. We had an interesting meeting on Friday. Bill and I met with the Safe Coalition folks. That's the 501c3 out of Rentham. It's actually all of the communities that work through Rentham District Court. It's based in Franklin, but they have quite an operation as far as a formalized opioid task force. We have our Safe Foxborough, which I have to say we've got a lot of passion, a lot of dedicated people on our committee, but we talked about ways, we explored on Friday ways that we could pool our resources and maybe become a part of their group. They've already established with printing and technology and marketing, and ours has just kind of been a grassroots effort here on our side, with really dedicated committee members. So they've asked me to attend one of their board meetings. Right now, their board meetings conflict with your meetings, so if I'm not here, I may be there. But we're exploring that, because together we can make a much bigger difference in the opioid awareness and dealing with crisis issues.
And they have established resources that we don't have, and they have funding from grants and really well supported by the district courts, the district attorney's office, and they've really identified a power source for making this much more effective.
Mhm.
And so we think there's advantage to being part of a bigger effort to make this more effective for us. And in the meeting that we had with them was really, really interesting for them as well as for us. They thought that we Foxborough had worked together really, really well on this issue. They were very impressed by what we had done so far as a town. And they wanted us to become part of their group because they think that we can add something to their overall effort, and not only that, but they can help us. So that appears to be the direction we're headed at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And
Is this a private 501c3 or public, like?
It's public.
It's public, yeah.
Group of area
Yep,
towns?
it's a
that-
group started with a concerned parent, and we have people from the courts and Rotary, and we have practitioners, clergy, you name it.
It's a good group.
Their group represents almost all of the communities that come out of Rentham District Court. They have Learn to Cope. I mean, they have like coordinated efforts with so many of the support facilities, as well as, pharmacists and doctors, and they're just so well-rounded. And we have a great committee here with our human services and public safety and public health folks, as well as members of the community and schools. But we really think that we could be better served maybe by joining forces.
Is there any federal money that goes to them, or is it all just?
They, I believe they have just this year received a $50,000 grant, but they haven't sought federal. That was a state grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're looking
Because I
to do that
remember,
next, yeah.
reason I'm asking it, God, probably 8, 9, 10 years ago, I was on a committee in Foxborough.
It was
I
the
think-
original Safe Foxborough one, probably.
Yeah.
That's what
and-
we've
And it was Stoughton.
Yep.
And, and then it was going in a great direction, and then all the federal money dried up, and everybody just kind of petered out, so.
We've
Yeah.
not seen any federal money headed in that direction yet, but it might be at some point. But we're trying to build the apparatus in place so that will stay on just without that kind of funding, because we know that can disappear.
Yeah. There is a
quickly, too.
DFC grant of like $720,000 out there that I think if we became a larger group, that might qualify us.
Yeah.
But I think this is a group that could actually start leveraging private resources as well eventually,
Mhm.
to the point where we could really be supported on many different levels.
Okay, good.
So they're doing what we hoped that we would become.
Yeah.
Right.
And we were heading in that direction, but I think we don't have the resources to dedicate to it that they do.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Yeah,
really.
we're
it's
in
really-
our infancy, and they're already established, and I do, to Bill's point, I think it would be a good venture. The other thing we've been working on, we continue to hope for the regional grant news of our 911 grant to continue our SEMREC regionalization efforts. We are in the process of recruiting a director with the hope that we can move to the next step in the interview process, and there will be funding. So we are continuing to move forward with the committee on that. We're down to, we had interviews with 4 finalists after we had 40 applicants, so it's been a really good process. I've enjoyed working with the chiefs from all of the 4 towns, and we'll continue to update you on that. We hope to hear after Labor Day on that grant.
What happens if you don't get the grant with the 2 applicants?
We have to revisit where we are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point, because one of the things that I've demonstrated to folks and I've stood by is the fact that if we don't get the funding, we're gonna have to rethink our approach.
Mhm.
It would be very unfortunate if we don't, because we did everything that the state asked us to do in this case. We had probably one of the best applications of anyone. We were the only ones that reached, we were one of the few people that actually reached the tier 1 level. of commitment, so we have unanimous support from all the boards. We did everything right in this one, so if the rules of the game change, at this point, it's not gonna be because we didn't try, it's because other forces came together to change the game plan, so we're hopefully that's
Yeah.
not the case. We're really hoping that's
We
not the
fit all
case.
the criteria for the priority one, folks who would get priority for the grant. So there have been communities that have been notified that they didn't get the grant. So we're still in the running, which is good. That's
Good.
positive. And just the final thing that I have is, I think I told you, we've begun our negotiation process with, we're currently negotiating with fire and steel workers. We're beginning the process with police, and we're impact bargaining right now with dispatch over this regional issue. So we've got 4 sets of negotiations moving forward. So it'll continue to get busy as the year goes on. That's it.
Good.
Pick up on the action items?
Yep. Move to approve the gift donation to the Council on Aging of $285 from the Friends of Foxborough Seniors for entertainment at the cookout, and $35 for the lockbox program from Anonymous.
Second?
Motion made second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Move to accept a gift donation in the amount of $20 to Veteran Services for the Iraq and Afghanistan War Memorial from Robert and Patricia Boynton.
Second?
Motion made second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Move to accept a gift donation in the amount of $100 to Veteran Services for the Iraq and Afghanistan War Memorial from Suzanne Heffernan.
Second?
Motion made second, any further discussion?
Nope.
Seeing none, all's in favor?
What's the timetable for that? Are we still on for the schedule for that memorial?
According to Mike, we're
For the-
still on schedule.
Still on
Yeah.
schedule?
Yeah.
September, right? Not November?
November.
November,
That's
yeah.
what I thought.
Veterans Day.
Yeah.
Veterans Day would be the dedication.
Mhm.
Good.
We still need money, though.
So the donations are always welcome, right?
Yes. Move to approve the 10/18/16 Board of Selectmen minutes.
Second?
Motion made second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Right.
Move to approve the 7/25/17 Board of Selectmen's meeting minutes.
Second?
Motion made second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
And move to approve the 8/8/17 Board of Selectmen minutes.
Second?
Motion made second, under discussion, I'm going to recuse myself because I wasn't here.
Okay. I found one typo. Actually, it's not even a typo. The gentleman from the Knights is Paul O'Sullivan, not Paul Sullivan.
Oh, so, okay,
Other than that, flawless.
thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So one, Dave recused himself. Okay.
Yeah, I'm out. Sarah, you have anything?
Yes. So, just some bit of a clarification, Barrett, Foxborough reporter. So the grant that would allow for the regionalization, that's currently in limbo at the moment?
No, we're just waiting to hear. We have not, we're just waiting like everybody else. Nobody's been told yet.
Right, but if you didn't get the grant, you'd have to potentially hold back on regionalizing, or is there a way to do it
The
without the grant?
potential always exists, but I think we're, I don't wanna preempt my discussion until I've had a conversation with all 4 towns.
Right, excellent.
But I think it's a concern that because we presented it as being a no impact in terms of instituting the regionalization, to all 4 towns starting off, because we still have to run dispatch while the new system's being developed.
Of course.
So we have to think of all options at that point.
Great. No, that works well. And yeah, I think
We
that's.
remain hopeful.
What's
Yeah,
that?
I
We
mean,
remain hopeful.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we're not gonna get it, or that we're concerned about not getting it, it's just the fact that we have to be mindful that we have to look at all options.
Excellent. And so demolition, you're thinking is going to be next week?
This week, we think it was gonna happen later this week.
It's going to happen later this week. So Thursday.
The process will start. It'll take probably about a week before the building comes down completely, and then it'll take a process. It'll take probably a week or two to sort through all the materials.
So it's going to start. Demolition is going to start this week. It'll take about a week once it starts. Is there going to be any day where there's going to be like a big wrecking ball or something that people can watch?
No, it'll be a big excavator. There'll be 2 excavators on site, actually.
It'll come down quick.
Excellent.
It should come down quick.
But is there any like specific date of when like the big flashy knocking down is going to be? Since some people enjoy watching that.
I don't, yeah. I know you're
copy.
pressing me for it, but I don't know that answer 100%, but, and the thing is that we don't want a lot of people to be attracted to it because, you know, it's gonna be dusty and.
Active.
Yeah, there's a
It's
pretty
inactive.
clear perimeter,
Pretty clear
like we can't even
perimeter, yeah.
park because there could be debris falling, so.
We try not to draw a lot of people to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're trying not to. You don't know at the time, but you also don't want to draw a lot of people to it.
That's
Nothing
right.
to see here. Move
So the
along.
Boy Scouts aren't doing. Is that was facetious about that?
If I was still their scout leader, we would turn that into a fundraiser or something.
That's right.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's just an active construction site is not a good thing
Yeah.
for people to watch. And I just, anything could happen, and I just don't want anything to happen that was unintended.
Of course. No, that works. Do I have anything else at the moment? No, I don't.
Hey, good luck in your future, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, good luck to you.
Yes.
We'd like to thank you for your diligence and
Service to this community.
your integrity.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Yeah. So
We need more press guys like you. That's
well,
the way
you
to
flatter
work.
me too much, but,
All right.
but flattery will get you everywhere. Is that wise people?
I will tell you that Rick's a good guy, though. I do like Rick.
I do like Rick, but it looks like yeah, Rick will be there, and I think that there's probably, I mean, hopefully there's also going to be another person as well, I'm not privy to all the details.
Understood.
But I'll be here involved until the issue of the 31st, and then I'm gone.
Great. All right.
All right.
Best of luck.
Thank you much.
Sure, we'll see you. All right, thanks.
Move to adjourn?
Second?
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nice.
Excuse me, could you send me